Welcome to the Tech Basement. I'm Dean Jackson.
And I'm Matt Zwolenski.
We're here for a new era. EMC and Dell have merged, and we're all part of a new company. So hence, we're going to start Season 2 of the Tech Basement. So Season 2, Episode 1. And we're here part of EMC and Dell and part of the world's largest startup. How cool is that?
That's right. So Dean, have you got your new email address?
Yes, I checked it out. So dean.jackson@dell.com. How cool is that?
Good.
Hey,
yeah.
You got yours too?
I sent myself a little email from Matt Zwolenski@dell.com and said, welcome to Dell. So there you go.
That's awesome. Pretty excited about it, and all the changes and fun things we're going to get, hopefully, as part of being part of this new company.
Looking forward to David. Do they do discounts on Alienware equipment for employees?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a great employee purchase program.
So looking forward to that.
Yep, can't wait.
Now we should introduce our special guest. So this week on Tech Basement, we have David Siroky from Dell. David, welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Yeah, thanks. It's a pleasure to be here.
And so David, tell everyone what's your role? Where do you fit into Dell?
So I run the HPC Cloud and Big Data team here for Dell in ANZ. So our focus is on helping organizations in Australia build research computing clusters. Mm-hmm. We also do a lot of work around our alliances with SAP and Microsoft for big data analytics platforms, as well as cloud platforms. So if you're looking to move a workload into the cloud or run an Azure consistent private cloud on your premises and be able to move in a hybrid environment where you move your workloads back and forth. And then we also do some work with Cloudera around Hadoop and analytics clusters. And all of these areas are starting to converge. So it's super exciting.
Cool. It's awesome stuff. So back to a bit about Dell and EMC, now that we're merged together. What do you think coming together will mean for the Dell and EMC teams? And maybe what about our customers? The most important part, what is it going to mean for our customers?
Yeah, well, look, honestly, I think our customers are the big ones that win out of this, because if you have a look at the assets and the capabilities that EMC has with their experience in the enterprise and in the data center, the capabilities that VMware's got around software defined, and then the strength of Dell's supply chain and its focus on the mid-market, and you look at bringing all of those assets together, you've got to think that the people who are going to win here are going to be the customers. They're going to have incredible choice in solution.
A huge company with products from every corner of the market in IT. It's amazing stuff.
What about employees? What do you think? EMC employees, Dell coming together. What do you think the EMC and Dell teams are thinking about? What should be, or what's going through their heads about what to be excited about?
Yeah, well, look, I know when I talk to my team, they get really excited. So they look at the things that are in the Dell portfolio and the historic strength around the server footprint, for example, and the laptop footprint. But then, they look over the fence to see, hey, what has EMC got over there for example, storage solutions that will integrate with mainframe platforms. That's something that we haven't ever had in the portfolio, and the strength around the backup and data management solutions that you have, and the organization with VCE to really deliver turnkey integrated VMware platforms for customers, I think are all terrific assets we're looking forward to working with.
All right. Now, you said your team does a lot in HPC, so I presume research, universities, those are the arears where you're primarily operating, is that?
Yeah, so HPC is an interesting area in that it's got a lot of sub-areas. So you've got your universities like Monash University, Melbourne University. Most higher education universities will do some type of research computing, whether it's genomic analysis or molecular chemistry, or being able to do visualization work. There's a lot of research computing that's done, but there's also other elements of HPC. Most movie production companies will do movie rendering, so that's another important workload for us.
So movies, though, you think about Hollywood and the US. Is there much going on here around that space?
Yeah, there is. There's a number of companies both in New Zealand and Australia. Some of these companies don't like to be named, so I won't mention their name, but they're producing big budget Hollywood movies, and some of those companies are doing that on Dell hardware.
So the interesting part of that is specifically to media and entertainment, like our Isilon platform, the Dell EMC Isilon platform has historically been a big target for that industry. And then obviously on the Dell compute side,
absolutely,
a big part. So those coming together, and now we have an amazing solution.
Yeah, one of our customers right here in Sydney is using both your Isilon platform and the Dell
Isilon
servers. Soon to be our Isilon and server platform. So we're very excited about that.
Yeah, very cool. Just and back on the HPC side, so I understand Dell invests a lot in supercompute, and you've got some pretty big research centers where you've made investments, doing some amazing stuff in the innovation side. Can you talk a little bit about that and some of the cool new technology areas that Dell's investing in?
Yeah, so look, when you look at the research computing area, there's a number of unique technologies that I think are used in research computing, particularly for the large scale out MPI workload. So, the classical application there would be seismic analysis, where you've got an organization that's trying to work out where to drill for oil, for example. They'll do sort of ground penetrating radar. They'll get the bounce back and they'll try to calculate the size of the well and where to drill. Or you might have a military defense contractor doing computational fluid dynamics. So they're looking to model the water flow over the propeller in a submarine. But that technology also branches out into movie production. So if you want to do a Hollywood special effects blockbuster where the water looks realistic when it flows around the building, you're now taking research elements that were originally pioneered in universities to do computational fluid dynamics that are now being applied to making sure that tsunami, when it crashes over the building, looks realistic.
Very cool.
So what about IoT, like Internet of Things? A huge area of growth. Any great examples of some really interesting stuff that Dell has historically done on the compute side there? Because that's an area where really EMC hasn't played as strongly in.
Yeah, look, I think it's a fascinating area because there's so much data that's coming off these sensors. I was meeting with Intel last week. They were telling me about this one customer that's using Fitbit devices, and you wear one for 2 or 3 weeks. It calculates your heart rate and automatically works out what your risk profile is in terms of your life insurance policy, and they're able to offer you a discount if you fill in with a particular band in terms of your health and your biometrics. So there's a lot of interesting projects. I heard about an organization in the Netherlands that applied the same technology to their cars, and they're applying discounts to auto insurance because typically the young male driver has the highest risk premium and risk profile. So it's a very that's a very profitable customer base. But from a personal perspective, some of those young male drivers are willing to be responsible, so they can sign up to have a sensor device put in their car, and they can receive a significant discount on their insurance. So what's interesting is all of this
parent,
sensor
if you can
data.
grab that data and stream it off to the home, that'd be an awesome technology.
I know when I moved over here, I was probably a high risk profile coming from the right side of the road, so I probably got dodged around that one a bit.
I had the same thing when I moved to Seattle. Driving on the wrong side.
It's like learning how to drive again.
You've got to learn to drive again. But what's interesting around Internet of Things is that you've got both the data that needs to be stored somewhere, and there's a tremendous portfolio of storage options that we've got together. But then there's also collecting the data from the various sensors. So one of the things we've built an Internet of Things edge gateway that's a hardware device that supports various wireless standards and even serial sensor links that you can hook up and it'll buffer the data, and then it can transfer it into a Hadoop cluster, or it can run a slimmed down version of HANA in it and buffer it directly into your SAP system. So if you want to do things like predictive analytics because you've got vibration sensors on a part and you want to determine when to take it out of production for maintenance, then you can start to implement scenarios like that.
Very cool.
All right, and getting into the application space, you mentioned SAP, but Microsoft, the Dell partnership with Microsoft is pretty strong, isn't it?
Yeah, so we've invested a lot of money in terms of joint R&D with Microsoft. And it's an area I'm passionate about. I spent almost 15 years working at Microsoft before I joined Dell. And we've got a team that's been working on the Microsoft Cloud Platform system. So it's a turnkey appliance that delivers an Azure consistent private cloud for a customer. So we've got a couple of councils who've purchased this in Australia. And really, the typical scenario is you've got a customer who might be taking advantage of Azure, or they might have some Azure credits included in their volume licensing agreement, and they want to be able to consume those to run workloads in the cloud to either do backup or DR or even scalability. You know, I was meeting with one of the government agencies down in Victoria. And when they have wildfires or bushfires, they don't know which day of the year they're going to hit, but they do know they're going to get a lot of web traffic. So being able to scale that up on multiple instances in the cloud instead of having a public emergency service go down during peak load is a really good use case for cloud. At the same time, they don't want to put everything in the cloud, so they want to retain control over security and governance and be able to run a number of things on premises. So these Azure hybrid clouds are really designed to give customers the best of both worlds.
So back to the SAP side for 1 minute. Being an SAP specialist, particularly interested in that one. As customers transfer over to HANA-based solutions from traditional databases, obviously x86 deployments. Can you talk a bit about the Dell offering? You know, I think there's some great synergies between the EMC storage offerings and Dell, but can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, well, there's a big shift going on in the industry in terms of SAP adoption and moving to the in-memory technologies instead of the relational technologies. And, you know, the interesting thing for all of us is the way that you size and build an SAP appliance. You know, back in the days where your underlying storage system had a transactional database and a query processor and log files, you know, there was a certain way of designing a system for that. But nowadays, as you move towards HANA, it's all about having a lot more memory in the node. So you're designing systems with sometimes, you know, 1.5 terabytes, 2 terabytes of memory for the HANA appliance, and they just read everything in a memory, and then they process everything from main memory, occasionally checkpointing to disk. And the way you design a system and an appliance for that's very different to the old ways of doing things when there was a relational database underpinning it all. So we've invested in a center of excellence. I was actually talking to our engineering team in Germany, and he was telling me, do you know, Dave, between Virtustream, VMware, Dell, and EMC, we've now got 45 people that work in the SAP partner port in Germany.
In Waldorf.
In Waldorf.
Wow, that's amazing.
Just on SAP solutions together.
It's pretty powerful stuff, and can't wait to get my hands on an R930. Pretty sweet looking 4-socket box.
So we just purchased one for our demo lab over here. So it's got 1.5 terabytes of memory. Customers can come in and do a proof of concept in our labs. So we actually have a major retailer. They've got 300 stores around Australia. They're coming into our labs in a few weeks to test their workload on SAP HANA and see whether it's going to give them the performance benefit they're looking for.
Where do you think the customers are at now, you know, in terms of that transition to HANA as the core database for things like ERP and so forth? What do you think the industry change has been like?
You know, I think it's been a gradual shift. Like any major technology shift, it really takes time to adopt. And as I talk to customers, you know, a lot of customers a decade ago were moving off some of these mid-range systems, and they were implementing either SAP on top of DB2 or SQL Server or Oracle. And I think customers finally got to a point where they were very comfortable with that. Now they're working through the shift to take advantage of the new HANA in-memory technologies. One of the things we were able to do is we implemented internally ourselves at Dell. So all of our business management system reporting runs on a HANA analytical appliance, and we're able to do real-time reporting to drill down in a sales pipeline by product, by rep. And those are the types of pipeline and analytics analysis that many SAP customers are trying to do with products like HANA and Lumira.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Awesome to see Dell doing that, right? And EMC, we've done similar things. So I guess that'll make the technology synergies pretty strong at the back end. And the other question I had was around what we call web scale infrastructure. And I see a lot of customers, they'll go on a tour of Azure, or they'll walk into a data center owned by a mega social networking company, and they'll walk out and they'll say, you know what, I didn't see a single enterprise system. The traditional, fridge-like system in the data center.
No logos at all.
No logos. It's all white box, hyper-converged type appliances built, and clearly the intelligence comes from the software layer that's run on top of the infrastructure. I think I've heard Dell's doing a fair bit in that space. Can you share a bit about Dell's focus there and in helping to build public clouds as well as taking that technology into the enterprise data center?
Yeah, sure. So it's actually a pretty interesting area because I think there's two or three dynamics in the web scale space that are interesting. There's an element around the software really becomes much more important, and a trend towards hyperconverged. So whether that hyperconverged platform is based on Nutanix XC series, or Microsoft have a product coming out with Storage Spaces Direct, or Scale.io or VMware, there's a number of products that are all capitalizing on that approach of hyper-converging the storage to deliver the same sort of simplicity that organizations like the big cloud providers see in their infrastructure. So I think there's a trend towards hyper-converged, and there's I think Dell has a tremendous advantage in having the broadest hyper-converged portfolio in the market. We've got all four of those products there, and a supply chain that makes the configurations and the flexibility they're really interesting. So there's that part of the market, but then there's also the cost optimization supply chain side of the market. So when the large providers, whether it's an Amazon or Google or Microsoft, are looking to build a data center, that's a substantial part of the cost of running their business. So they're looking to really make sure that they've optimized their supply chain and their cost structures in a way that they're getting the best value for money for their shareholders. So the same way that we partner with organizations like those providers, we've got a division of Dell called the Data Center Solutions team that provides a scalable data center products for organizations like eBay and other cloud providers that really sort of dig in and design highly cost optimized solutions, but still with the same reliability that our customers associate with the PowerEdge brand.
Would a public cloud ever use that type of technology?
There's a number of public cloud providers that we supply.
Right. Using Dell technology.
Using Dell technology.
That is very cool. Just interesting question. One of the things you touched on was software-defined storage. Out of all those solutions you mentioned, like you mentioned Scale.io and storage spaces and VMware being vSAN, what's the one you've seen most compelling use case out there that have been most popular from those types of solutions? Have you seen one that sort of picked up steam more than the others, or?
So I think it's a good question, but it's also a market that's growing so much that they're all growing. So I think we're seeing organizations come to us saying, hey, traditional storage can be a challenge to manage in terms of traditional 3-tier storage, where you've got to hire a fiber channel administrator, and you need to have people that are skilled on fiber channel zoning and provisioning LUNs. And when you go to smaller organizations, particularly what I'd call the mid-market, those organizations sometimes aren't able to have all of the various skills that they need. So if they're able to pick up a product that's easy to use, then they see some gains. So in one end of the market, I think Nutanix has been quite successful with having a multi-hypervisor product that runs with Hyper-V and NX and VMware, and that's a solution that we have within our portfolio on the PowerEdge servers. But at the other end of the market, we've seen many customers using VMware adopt vSAN. Mm-hmm. And just in the last quarter, if I have a look at the amount of vSAN versus Nutanix that we've sold, it's a fairly balanced portfolio. We've got just as many customers buying one as the other. Some customers have some multi-hypervisor needs that have been adopting that, while others really like the simplicity of being able to manage the portfolio from within the VMware tools that they already know. Mm-hmm. And both of those are growing significantly faster than the overall market. So we're seeing an overall trend towards hyper-converged across all aspects of the portfolio.
I guess with vSAN too, it's so easy. It's just part of the hypervisor. You just turn it on and away you go. So you might even not know where it's being used as well. So,
yeah, that's right. That's right.
Okay. And I'm really intrigued. So obviously something we're learning about, or we'll be learning about, is the Dell storage portfolio. So in terms of Compellent, what's, are there one or two things that you find that customers are most excited about with Compellent, or what's, where the value fits in the technology?
Yeah, sure. So this is one of the things that, I didn't come from a storage background before I joined Dell. So when I met with the storage team and asked them, hey, tell me about this Compellent product, I was pretty intrigued to learn. It was one of the first fully sort of software-defined products that was built on an x86 platform that wasn't tightly coupled to the hardware. So they were able to implement many industry-leading innovations like data tiering, cross-platform replication, and even unified management across different architectures. It's a very adaptable solution being built on standard x86. I think the team's been able to innovate pretty quickly. One thing that I think is interesting is Dell has a couple of storage products. One of the acquisitions before Compellent was EqualLogic, which was based on iSCSI technology as a storage array. And the team was able to successfully bridge those technologies, both with cross-platform replication between EqualLogic and Compellent, but then also seamless administration by being able to provide a single pane of glass to manage both platforms. So I've got to say hats off to the team for being able to solve that pain point for customers, providing an easy transition path and seamless cross-platform replication and administration. I think it shows the commitment to customers that's unparalleled.
Okay. Very cool. So we've talked about compute, talked about storage, networking. Now, one of the things that really surprised me coming together with Dell was the strength and breadth of the Dell networking portfolio. I was really surprised. Can you talk to us a bit about why customers are choosing Dell networking and where it really fits in the industry?
Yeah, so the Dell networking portfolio is very, very broad. It spans a range of technologies. There's Ethernet options, there's InfiniBand options, there's fiber channel options, and there's now Intel OmniPath options. So there's options across all four. So we have a partnership with Intel, and we were the first to market with Intel's OmniPath technologies, OEM'd under Dell.
So OmniPath, PCIe, basically switched PCIe networking?
So think of OmniPath as a while ago Intel purchased some of the assets from QLogic when they were in the InfiniBand switching business. So this is Intel's take on the next generation of InfiniBand technologies. And as they come out with new server platforms, we've seen with the bootable Knights Landing processor, Intel's now putting the OmniPath fabric for high-speed interconnect directly on the die.
Wow.
So being able to offer a bootable server platform with OmniPath and a full switching infrastructure end-to-end supported by Dell is pretty important and groundbreaking in the HPC space. Now, we also have a OEM relationship and partnership with Mellanox. There's many customers with installed InfiniBand fabrics that we continue to support and continue to buy their technologies. In the same way, we have a partnership with Brocade around OEMing a large part of their portfolio. One of the pieces that's quite innovative, though, is the Ethernet portfolio in the way that Dell approaches that. So there's certainly a full range of branch office switching. Most organizations will have some need for power over Ethernet switching to run their phones and their security cameras and all these IoT sensors. They all need to be powered, and we haven't worked out how to do wireless power delivery. So
it's coming, though.
That RJ45 cable is incredibly helpful. So that technology, Dell also has some data center switching. And what's unique there is the commitment has been to software defined from day one. So you can take a Dell switch and you can run, Dell has an operating system, the Force 10 operating system on it. And that's very much like logging into any other switch. It's an industry CLI. But you can also order the switch, boot it up with Cumulus Linux. If you are a Linux administrator and don't want to learn the admin console for a switch, maybe all of your administrators are trained on Linux instead of a switch CLI. You can run Linux on your switches running Cumulus Linux. And that works much better for an administrator who's used to working in Linux instead of having to learn a whole new console to manage their switches. And similarly, Big Switch Cloud Fabric is another partner, and we do a lot of work with NSX as well to integrate with VMware's NSX platform. So,
yeah, I was going to say,
choice on the OS
sounds like there'd be good synergies with VMware and Dell's networking portfolio in that, given that you're both on that strategy of software-defined infrastructure and software-defined networking, sounds like a great partnership.
That's an important one because organizations are really struggling with security. Mm-hmm. And as you've seen all of these breaches that have happened over the past year or two, spending on security is going up. But if you look at the documented security breaches, they're going up even faster than spending on security. So, if you're spending more on security, but you're leaking more data, let's say, there's an opportunity for some improvement. And I think the work VMware has done around microsegmentation with NSX as a key technology to limit the impact of data breaches and to make it easier to manage firewalls, I think is going to be an important breakthrough for many customers.
So you could say that the Dell Enterprise Networking Suite really enables the software-defined data center for networking. It's really the foundation of it all.
That should be in product marketing too.
What do you think? Should we hire him in product marketing?
All right, David. Look, it's been absolutely fantastic having you here. Appreciate you taking the time. We're so excited to be coming together with Dell. I can see our SE team just drooling over the technology, all the new cool things they have to learn about going forward. But conscious of your time, thank you for joining the show. This is the first of season 2, Dean.
Yeah, as Dell employees.
That's right.
We're going to get Matt and Dean wearing Dell t-shirts next time round.
We cannot wait to get those. So next episode we'll be wearing those. So anyway, to our viewers, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all in the next show.